Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. As the bowl games draw to a close, the national championship game is set. TCU Horned Frogs versus the Georgia Bulldogs. The question comes up again: whose conference truly is the best, top to bottom? Because I think the SEC has gotten away for multiple years claiming that they have the best conference. Claiming that the games are so much tougher in the SEC, and that obviously, if the national champion is coming out of the SEC, that should pick up the whole conference and make it seem like that conference is the best conference. Well, these may be two extreme examples, but these are the examples that I have. Let's take the New England Patriots, for instance. New England Patriots are probably the most successful football franchise over the last 22 years, right? Even though they've fallen on some lean years, since Tom Brady has gone to Tampa Bay. But I don't think anyone was saying that, oh, well, because the Patriots won the Super Bowl, the AFC East should be looked at as a better conference. Nobody looked at that. No one looked at it and said, man, maybe if the Jets were in another conference, let's say the Jets were in the AFC South, man, the Jets will win the AFC South. Or if the Miami Dolphins were in the NFC South. No one talks like that. But obviously, again, that's NFL, you know, logic, right? Or even in the 90s, when the Bulls were winning, NBA championships, no one probably said, well, if we put one of these Eastern Conference teams in the Western Conference, they will have a shot because the only reason they're not making it is because of the Bulls. Even though for many, many years during that time, the Western Conference was a lot stronger. So when we talk about from a top to bottom standpoint, the only time that you really can judge how well a conference is doing from top to bottom is if you put them in bowl games, right? That's the only metric. Now, of course, obviously, each particular bowl game is not going to be against a P5 conference. You have group of five teams that end up playing in some of these bowl games just based on the agreements that they have in terms of what bowl teams get. But that's really the only time postseason that we can actually see, which conference is better. And so the ACC is having is having I guess, all right, bowl season this particular year. But I don't have all the stats. This is well, the wins and losses I already compiled because the SEC still has three more games. The Big Ten has three more games. Obviously, the Big 12 has one more game with TCU playing Georgia, and the Pac 12 has two more games. Right. So I'm just going by what the numbers that we have right now, and it's another number that I want some couple more numbers that I want to throw out there because I think one of the things that has to be brought up is the amount of teams that are in conference. Because when I started adding these numbers up, I said, man, it's a disparity. But then I looked and I said, oh, it's a disparity because each conference doesn't have. Well, obviously, of course, each conference doesn't have the same amount of teams, but at the same time, the Big 12 has 10 teams. ACC has 15. So that five-team margin actually could, sway things into, the ACC's favor. But so these are the amount of teams per conference as it stands of right now. This is not including conference realignment that is expected to happen in the next coming years, right? So the ACC currently has 15 teams. SEC has 14. Big 10 has 14. Big 12, as I noted, has 10, and the Pac 12 has 12 teams, right? So let's get down to these overall numbers for this particular bowl season. And what I did was I compiled the wins and losses for the last six bowl seasons, including this one, and these are the numbers that I got, right? So ACC has no more bowl games, right? So um, a 6 year mark, the ACC is 30-29. SEC is 35 and 34. Big 10 is 29 and 23. Big 12 is 21 and 21. And the Pac 12 is an abysmal 14 and 25. So, from looking at this, what we can see right now is that the SEC has three more games. So the SEC probably can, move up because technically right now they're tied with the ACC as being the second best conference based on bowl record. But they have a chance to put a game or two, or maybe they run the table. Obviously, the Big Ten is 29-23. They have 3 games left, so we could realistically say that the Big Ten could quite possibly, run the table in reference to their opponents. Again, the Big 12, um, maybe if TCU were to pull off an upset, then that would put them tied with ACC. And obviously, the Pac-12 can win both their next 2 bowl games, and it's not going to make any type of um, any type of noise. So as it currently stands right now, the Big Ten is hands down the best conference from top to bottom. SEC and ACC are tied for second, and the Big 12 is third, and Pac 12, which many of us have said for years, is running last. And it's a conference that's going to be attacked in the next couple of years, as well as the Big 12 is going to be attacked in the next couple of years because you got USC and UCLA going to the Big 10. And of course, the big news of Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC. So that could, strengthen. Um, well, it's going to strengthen both of those particular conferences, and it's going to leave the Big 12, the ACC, and the Pac-12 left to try to pick up whatever salvageable pieces that we have moving forward. But again, this is just one particular, metric of what it is that is the best conference. And I think I did write down. I think from a overall best bowl record standpoint, back in 2016, the ACC went 9-3 in bowl games. In 2019, well, in 2017, the Big Ten went 7-1 in bowl games. 2019 to 2020, SEC held it down. They were 8-2 in bowl games. Um, in 2018, 2019, it was pretty much a wash. The ACC was 6-5, SEC was 6-6, Big Ten was 5-4. So that really wasn't a standout year by any stretch. And then 2001, 2022, as it which was last year's bowl schedule. ACC was 2-4. Pick back the Big 12 took it last year because they were 5-2. SEC 6-8, Big Ten 6-4, and the Pac-12 last bowl season was 0-5. So that's god awful. That's god awful. But and again, the question becomes again the question that leads to this particular video is the ACC really as bad as, or is the ACC better than we give it credit for? And I think most people say that the ACC is running third. We're ahead of the Big 12 and ahead of the Pac 12, right? But what's startling to me is that I would thought we would be further ahead of the Big 12 as well as the Pac 12, which we are further ahead of the Pac 12, but I thought we would have had a little bit more, um, as I say, a little bit more rope, between us and the Big 12. But kind of in a situation we're like right there. So, with that being said, what do you guys think? Obviously, there are different, metrics that you can, judge these things by. But do you think that, according to these records, do you think the Big Ten is the best conference in college football, followed by the SEC, or do you feel that the national championship winner um, conference should be looked at as the best, right? I don't really know what type of metric we could possibly use to say the ACC is the best, other than maybe we're saying, well, um, Miami and Clemson and Florida State. I don't know. I don't know what argument you can make for the ACC right now. The numbers are the numbers. Now, obviously, of course, you could go in and look at, okay, well, what was the strength of opponent in these bowl games, and then they might say, oh, okay, because and I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna get out of here. I was listening to Minister Sports, Zach Smith show, and it was something that they were talking about in reference to the SEC. And I was like, I've never heard this before. I've never heard this before. And what they were talking about is that some people in SEC country state that from a bowl game perspective, that seeing is that their teams are, especially the last couple of years in reference to the playoffs, their teams have been so highly ranked that it has forced a lower tier team in the SEC to be placed in a higher bowl game, and they're being matched up with a team from another conference that's better than them, right? It's like, it's like, um how do I put it? But you get what I'm saying, right? It's like a lesser team that would. Okay, let me see. Prime example. Let's say, for instance, they're speaking from a standpoint like, okay, Alabama and Georgia are tied up in the playoffs, right? So those are the two best teams, right? So then let's say the third team was like, let's just say let's use this year for instance, right? Let's just say, well, no, we can't use this year. Just hypothetically, Alabama, Georgia tied up in the playoffs, right? So then, I guess from a recency standpoint, who would be the third best team in the SEC? I know Tennessee had a good year this year. Florida was off. I don't know who would be the third best team in the SEC. But anyway, let's just say LSU the third best team in the SEC, right? So they get in a game, and let's say they get matched up with USC, and USC is the best team in the Pac-12. They're saying, well, your conference champion is playing the third best team in our conference. That's not fair. You see what I'm saying? That's the type of logic that's being used, right? But again, NCAA makes rules for the other four conferences, and the SEC has its own set of rules. But no, I'm not that person though. I'm not that person. But does that logic make any sense to you all? I heard it, and it just was like, if you're saying that your conference is the best, then the third best team should be able to beat the best team in any one of the other conferences that don't have a situation where their two best teams are also in playoff contention, right? But that's just me thinking. But y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, man. Is the Big Ten the best conference in college football based on bowl record, or should the best conference in college football title remain with the conference in which that team won the national championship? Even though when Clemson was winning two national titles, I don't think no one was saying ACC is the best conference, other than Jimbo Fisher. I still remember that media day when Jimbo Fisher came out and proclaimed that ACC is the best conference in college football, right? But I think that's the year that he ended up leaving and going to Texas A&M. So the irony of Jimbo Fisher saying that. But as always, man, like, share, subscribe, comment, man, and as always, man, it's all about the you. Even though we're not playing in the best conference in college football.